Hello, my strong shorties. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be talking about how to grow the glutes, the honest and truthful answer, not the fitfluencer answer. I know all of you are interested in increasing your bum size. I also know that there is a ton of misinformation out there on social media, whether that's Instagram, TikTok, or even YouTube. So today I want to give you the honest truth about what it takes to grow your peach. So please stay tuned. First up, why should you even listen to me? I was a former physical therapy assistant, which means I was helping people return to normal function and recreational activities after they had an injury or pain through exercise. So I have a background in anatomy, biology already. I have good experience working with people. I then became a certified personal trainer with continuing education focusing on nutrition and how to build muscle effectively. I am not a fitfluencer who has only worked on myself and has no experience working with other people, or just got lucky, or has been gifted genetically. I'm none of those things. I have experience working with people towards their fitness goals. More importantly, I also grew my glutes from this to this. So let's talk about the very first thing you need to determine in order to grow your glutes. What kind of exercise have you recently been doing or are currently doing? Are you doing Pilates? Are you doing yoga? Are you doing circuits on the Stairmaster? Are you running? Are you marathon training? Are you doing banded workouts at home? Are you doing nothing? You're just starting your journey from zero. This essentially means all of the above. You are a beginner to resistance training. Yes, even if you've done home workouts where you work out with bands, you are still a beginner. That is because bands aren't training your glutes that effectively. So as a beginner, it simply means that you actually have a lot of gains on the table to be made. This is advantageous for you. It means you can make a lot of progress in a short amount of time with less effort than a more experienced trainee. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need the perfect split, the perfect program, the perfect technique to start to make gains. But your body type, where it is right now, does influence maybe where you should begin. So let me explain. As a beginner trainee, you will absolutely benefit from the recomping effect. That is, your body will be able to build muscle because there is such a strong demand on your body in order for it to do so. Recomping simply means that you are building muscle while burning fat at the same time, and your weight kind of equalizes essentially. So whenever you have such a strong stimulus to build muscle, your body can actually partition the fatty tissue towards muscle. If you are currently skinny fat, right now, if you start to train effectively, then you will probably get a really good recomping effect where you build some muscle, you burn some fat, and you'll probably achieve a really nice, what I call lifestyle lean look. You're not going to be shredded and ripped, but you are still going to notice that your body is tighter, a little bit more toned, you have more definition, and you have put more muscle on your frame, so your glutes should pop out a little bit more. This is exactly what happened to me whenever I first started lifting weights with a program and focused on really good quality resistance training. I made some really good gains. I lost that skinny fat look and I grew my glutes. I looked fit. I don't look shredded. I don't look like next level lean or anything, but I was still very happy with that physique that I had built. And this took me about 1 year to notice this difference in my body. The second body type, if you are more overweight and you just simply have a little bit more fatty tissue on your frame, then you are still going to experience the body recomping effect. But because you have more fatty tissue, you're not going to be as lean as you probably want to be. And so you are going to need to do a fat loss phase at some point. Body type number 3, if you are very lean already, you're very petite, or you just don't have like any fat mass on your frame, it's going to be really hard for your body to recomp in the way that you're not going to build your glutes that well because your body doesn't have a lot of tissue to do it. You need building blocks to build muscle and to create shape. You can't create shape out of nothing. I can't create a beautiful clay sculpture out of 1/3 of the clay that I would actually need to create a beautiful clay sculpture. You know, I would get 1/3 of the way done. So you need to eat more food in order to build junk in your trunk. Okay, so let's dive a little bit deeper. Body type number 1, if you're skinny fat, you probably don't need to touch your nutrition that much. I absolutely recommend the most beneficial thing for you to change is to look at your protein intake. You need to be sure that you are getting anywhere between 0.75 up to 1 gram of protein per pound that you weigh. So take your current weight and you can multiply your current weight by 0.75 all the way up to 1. And that is the protein range in grams that you should be hitting on a day-to-day basis. Yes, it is quite a wide range. If you're not used to getting in a lot of protein, aim for the lower range. Maybe you eventually end up towards that middle, and then maybe you eventually end up towards that upper end. There's actually been research coming out recently that shows that 1 gram of protein per pound that you weigh is actually on the high side to excessive side. There's not really that much more benefit from a body composition and muscle building level versus from 1 gram to 0.75 grams if you are resistance training. You can aim for that higher protein intake if you want. The benefits of doing that is if you need to feel more satiated in your meals, aiming for even more protein will help you feel a little bit more full. Then, of course, you just need to make sure that you're following a program with good glute growth. Do not follow a guy split for chest and calves. This could be a program that spans across 3 to 5 training days, but honestly, if you're a beginner, 3 days a week of training is a really good sweet spot for most people. You just need to be following an effective program and learn how to work out effectively. You honestly just don't need a lot of volume to see progress. So do not copy your influencer's workout where they're doing 1,000,000 sets per workout. That is way too much volume for you as a beginner. If you're working around 3 times a week with full body splits, it simply means that you can hit your glutes several times a week and be in an appropriate training volume for growth without totally taxing yourself. We will get into the specifics of this later in the video. So, what if you are body type number 3 and you are petite and lean? It is honestly the same recommendations as above, but like I mentioned before, you are gonna have a harder time building muscle tissue because your body doesn't have a lot of fat for that initial recomping effect. You will probably have to enter into a calorie surplus to help create tissue so that you can build up your glutes. Don't be scared. You are going to put a lot of that extra food toward building muscle. You're not just gonna look chunky and fat and overweight. It's not gonna happen. First, you need to determine about what your maintenance calories are, and then you can multiply those calories by 0.1 to 0.15, and that will give you a pretty decent range. Whatever that number is, you can add to the daily calories. So if you're eating 1,600 calories a day, you multiply that by 0.1 and up to 1.5, then that is a range of 160 up to 320 calories per day. So you can add anywhere from 160 on top of your 1,600 calories all the way up to 320 calories on top of 1,600 calories. Eat that way for anywhere from 12 to 16 weeks while you are still following a resistance training program. Do not add in all that food if you are just going to keep doing exactly what you're doing and doing Pilates and yoga. It's not gonna work the way that you want it to work. Okay, if you are body type number 2 and you are a little bit more overweight, you just carry a little bit more body fat on your frame. That's actually really good to help you build muscle mass because the energy is there. But B, it's also very protective of lean muscle mass. So you can actually implement a deficit while at the same time resistance training, focusing on protein intake, And you will see a really good effect of still be able to build muscle even though you are in a small to modest calorie deficit. So that at the end of 12 to 16 weeks, you still look slimmer. Of course, the other recommendations are the same. You still need to focus on your protein intake, and you still need to be following a good resistance program. Okay, so what if you are not a beginner trainee? What if you have really good experience for the past 1 to 2 years lifting weights in a really effective manner? As you become a more experienced lifter, it gets a little bit harder and harder for you to put on big amounts of muscle. You'll still be able to put on muscle, but it happens in smaller and smaller degrees, and you have to work harder and harder for it. So at some point, you're going to need different strategies. One of these strategies is to play around with your volume and start to increase volume, or play with periodization of, let's say you still have a goal of growing your glutes, you put some of your other muscle groups on a maintenance level to maintain them, and then you add in more glute training into your program so it's more specific, but you're not doing total volume for all of your muscle groups and beating yourself up too much. Of course, not everyone can just add in volume into their training. A lot of people have time constraints because of work, family, and other home activities. And not everyone wants to spend 2 hours in the gym 5 to 6 times a week. I'm one of those people. So if you don't really have room to play around with your volume and the frequency that you actually go to the gym or you do your workouts, then you might consider going through a bulk. A bulk is where you are increasing your food intake strategically to help you put on more muscle mass. Because remember, muscle can't grow out of nowhere. It still needs building blocks. Those building blocks are food. Guys, this is where the truth hurts. It really, really hurts. You are going to put on fat when you bulk. When you are increasing your calories strategically over time, yes, you can build muscle, but your body is not able to use all of those extra calories specifically to build muscle. Some of those extra calories will be attributed to cellular function and metabolism function, and some of it will be distributed to fatty tissue. You put on body fat. And guys, the more body fat you start with, the more fluffy and thick you're gonna become as you bulk. If you start from a very lean physique, you could bulk and you will gain some body fat, but you'll probably look quite lean and fit still. Think of Gains by Brains. She had achieved such a lean physique that now whenever she bulks, she doesn't get like fluffy or soft. She gets like strong thick. She's still damn fit, and she's still more tight and more toned than a lot of people whenever they go through a bulk, and that's simply because she had achieved such a lean physique to begin with. You guys, also very, very important for you to know that everyone gains fat in different areas. This is up to your genetics. You cannot change where your body stores fat. Do not believe the influencer who is telling you how to bulk without getting fat in your stomach. That is genetics. They maybe were able to increase their calories, and because their body naturally doesn't have as much fat in their stomach, they maintained a flatter, more lean stomach while they were bulking. It literally has nothing to do with exercise selection. The calories you add into your diet can overall add weight onto your frame. Your genetics determines where that fat starts to stack up. So while some people can go through a bulking phase to help them build up muscle and they're putting on fat, maybe genetically they aren't predisposed to have fat in their abdomen, and so their abdomen still looks pretty like flat. But other people, that's not their body type, and that is so normal, you guys. Do not beat yourself up if you don't look super lean and super fit whenever you're going through a bulk, because to be honest, most people don't look lean and fit when they're bulking. They look softer, fluffier, thicker. Personally, I carry a lot of fat in my lower abdomen and like in my back and in my thighs. So whenever I went through a bulk, my abdomen got very soft and jiggly and wiggly, and my low belly stuck out quite a bit more than it had before. And then my brow fat also, I'm still dealing with this brow fat, you know? It's normal. But I was able to grow my shoulders, my back, my glutes, and build up a little bit more abdominals by going through my bulk. So this is me without proper resistance training. This is me with my kind of body recomp effect. And then this is me after I went through my bulk so I could continue growing my glutes. And now this is me after I have slimmed down from my bulk and my glutes have lost just a little bit in size. They're still bigger than just the body recomp physique that I had. Okay, let's get into the type of exercises you need to grow your glutes. Your glutes perform hip extension and hip abduction. So hip extension is performed by your body when you stand up from a squat, when you leg press the plate away from you, when you are performing a deadlift or Romanian deadlift, when you are bridging or hip thrusting, and whenever you perform a 45-degree hyperextension. All of these revolve around hip extension. Hip abduction is really when your thigh is starting in the center of your body and it's kicking outside away from the midline of your body and can include rotary movements. So think of a sideline clamshell, seated hip abduction, and an angled kickback variations, and side-lying leg raises. All of those work your gluteus medius, while all of your hip extension movements work gluteus maximus. Your glute max also helps perform some rotary movement. So there are a lot of exercises that you can choose from in order to grow your glutes effectively. Once you have kind of this broad exercise list, the next thing to think about, honestly, is what exercises feel the best for you. For example, I'm not a huge fan of squatting, so I don't have that much like barbell squatting in my program. I have different variations like using the leg press, using the hack squat machine, and doing Bulgarian split squats. I prefer those over barbell back squatting. So this is still important for you to understand what you like to do, because if you're constantly doing exercises that you hate and that you dread, you are not going to have a long enough time training to get the physique that you want. So while you may include an exercise here or there that you're not crazy about, it's not your favorite, but it doesn't hurt you, you still feel like you're working hard without pain anywhere else, it's still a good exercise for you. But maybe you just don't want to fill up your whole program over and over and over with that exact exercise. You still need to include exercises that are challenging you, but you kind of like look forward to them. You don't hate them as much. Another important factor to consider that is hugely overlooked is the stability of an exercise. So while there are a ton of exercise variations and modalities out there, and yes, most of them are going to help you grow, there are some that are probably more effective than others because they provide the stability component. The barbell back squat has a lot of technique to it because you are stabilizing the bar. Your core is working to stabilize to make sure you're performing the exercise with good technique. It is so much harder for me to come close to failure on a barbell back squat because the nature of the heavy load and the fear of not being able to stand up. And yes, you can do things to mitigate these things, but a really good exercise swap for me that I love and I prefer is using the hack squat machine, which is still the same squat pattern, but I don't have to stabilize my upper body anymore because it's supported. So my back and my core and my shoulders are no longer a limiting factor to the exercise. I can get really deep in the hack squat machine and push the intensity really high, because I'm not scared of failing in this exercise. I have failed on this exercise, and all that happens is that I can't push myself back up to standing and I just plop down. It's totally fine. Another example is the seated hip abduction machine versus a cable kickback. While I do use cable kickback variations, I still prefer that seated hip abduction machine, because with the standing cable kickback variations, and even if you do versions where you're on hands and knees, the rest of your body is stabilizing to help hold you up and to support you. And so you are balancing on one leg, your back is tipped over, and so your back is fatiguing a little bit. A lot of people will compensate in their waist. So when their glute medius or their glute maximus isn't strong enough, they'll start to use their back or their waist. And even me, even whenever I know how to do the exercise properly, sometimes I notice that some of the effort is being translated into the waist, into the back a little bit, even though I'm concentrating very hard on just pulling out of the hip. So this limits the load that you are able to apply to the exercise. You should always prioritize the load and the intensity of your exercises as much as possible. So while I will include some kickback variations for a little bit of variety, I really like to use the seated hip abduction machine because balance is no longer a factor. My core is no longer a factor. I can really concentrate all the effort into the glute medius. So opening the machine and letting it close back together. But I am still able to prioritize as much weight as possible for any given rep range that I choose. Whereas the cable kickback, I tend to have to use the same very similar weight over and over and over. And that's just not a great principle to progressive overload. Okay, the next very important thing you want to consider to growing your glutes is the volume that you are doing. Way too many influencers are doing way too many sets. They're doing too much volume and they're repeating a lot of those same muscle patterns, and their workouts are quite redundant. Like they do 4 sets of barbell back squats into 4 sets of Bulgarian split squats into 4 sets of front foot elevated lunges, and then 4 sets of leg press. So 4 times 4 is 16 sets just for the glutes, you guys. If they were doing any other exercises, then their workouts are like 2 hours long. And if they weren't, then that is still a shit ton of volume in one day. This would mean that they're doing around 32 sets in a week for just that muscle group. And of course, in a lot of these exercises, whenever you're training your glutes, you are training like your quads and your hamstrings as well. That is a lot. I will tell you what volume you need as a beginner. You need somewhere around 10 sets per week. You heard me right. 10 sets per week for the muscle groups you are looking to grow. Remember, you as a beginner trainee, your body has such a strong signal to build muscle as long as you are training effectively. So a great benefit of reducing the volume in your training is that you can really learn to push the intensity of the exercise and just learn how to work really hard at 1 to 2 exercises for the glutes per session, because you aren't so worried about all of the exercises you have coming up. Like that first program, if you're doing your barbell back squats and all you can think about is, God, and I have to do split squats and I have to do leg press and I have to do the front foot elevated lunges, you're not gonna push yourself hard on your current exercise. Or maybe you can, but then by the time you get to the second exercises, you are spent and you're just like, all right, it's painful, this sucks, I just wanna get through it. And you don't really learn how to push yourself close to the intensity that you need. So in my program, I was doing anywhere from 10 up to 15 sets maximum for the glutes in a week. So that means I was only doing 1 to 2 exercises for the glutes in a session. Let that sink in. 1 exercise for the glutes sometimes, and only 2 exercises for the glutes sometimes. And look at the gains that I made. Great gains, you guys. You don't need a shit ton of volume, just need to push yourself hard. If you are an intermediate to advanced trainee, you can opt for a little bit more volume, anywhere between 10 to 20 sets per week. Divide 10, 12, 15, 20 by the frequency that you work out in a week, and that is the sets that you are going to need per workout session. Also, do not just jump from, let's say you had been doing 10 sets. Don't jump from 10 sets to 20 sets. Just try to add in 2 more sets at a time. See how that goes for minimum 8 weeks. And then if you feel like you still need a little bit more volume, add in 2 to 3 more sets. Your body still needs time to see changes, and 8 weeks is kind of the minimum amount of time that you're going to need to be able to see if something is working. In your program, you also must include your hinge patterns, but also abduction / rotary movements. You need both of these. You cannot just squat, deadlift, leg press. You also need your hip abduction, your angled kickbacks, and your side lying hip raises. You need that abduction and rotary component at the hip because that trains your glute medius and that adds shape to your upper butt and it helps round out your whole glutes. You guys, if you want 18 weeks of free glute training that is a part of a Hourglass Physique program, then I have a free downloadable guide on my website, and I will post that link in the description below. This is the Hourglass program that I used during my most recent bulk to help me build my glutes, my shoulders, my back, and my abs. So it is very specified towards a woman's hourglass physique. I'm giving you over 4 months of programming for free. So just go to my website and download it. Okay, you guys, I hope this video was very, very helpful. Do not get fooled by influencers who are genetically gifted or even have had surgery to help them look a certain way. Everybody's genetics are unique. Some people can build huge glutes, other people not as much. You are allowed to be your body type. You are allowed to be petite. You're allowed to be skinny fat. You're allowed to be curvy and be in the gym and work on your goals. That is all. Thank you guys for joining me. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you thought this video was helpful. I'll catch you in the next one.